All right, welcome back, my friends, to All Cars. I am John, and this week we are doing another Motorweek retro review reaction. It is the 1993 Lincoln Mark VIII. Now, I am on a little bit of a Lincoln tear right now. I'm actually working on two different projects around them, and I thought it was a good time to go check back on what I think is one of the more gorgeous cars they've actually created. So, if you would, grab your beverage of choice, sit back next to the fire and relax with me, and let's see what Motorweek said about it when it was brand spanking new.
Is made possible by Tire Rack.
When Japanese automakers first hit the luxury car market, it seemed that the real losers weren't the German cars that the Japanese were aiming at. They were the American luxury machines like Lincoln and Cadillac. Their aging designs meant that they couldn't fall back on reputation like the Europeans could. So they reacted the way Americans always do when backed up against a wall. They fought back. The latest member of America's resurgent luxury class is this '93 Lincoln Mark VIII. It has the most radical styling that this conservative brand has ever seen. But there's still a real luxury car underneath.
And great point. You know, Lincoln, they really had trouble, much like Cadillac did, with straddling the 80s and changing tastes in the demographics, right? You had the traditional buyers, typically older, who wanted body on frame, large, soft riding, you know, the town car. And then you had these young, upwardly mobile professionals with disposable income that really gravitated towards BMWs and Mercedes and Acura, and then later, of course, Lexus and Infiniti. And Lincoln really had trouble dealing with that and figuring out where they wanted to be, where they wanted to fall. And they came out with this, and it's absolutely gorgeous and should have heralded a new moment for Lincoln, but mismanagement and under investment in the brand kind of squandered that for a while. But a gorgeous car. Let's see what they say about it.
It was 1939 when the first Lincoln Continental, or Mark I, was introduced. Commissioned by Edsel Ford, the Lincoln Zephyr base convertible was a smash hit with the opulent Palm Beach set. Since then, the Mark line has been associated with luxury, wealth, and prestige. Many technical advances, such as the first automatic overdrive transmission made in America, could be found on Mark cars. More than a half-century later, Lincoln introduces the latest in the line, the elegant Mark VIII. No longer associated with the Continental badge, this new luxury coupe stands alone. Based on a highly modified Thunderbird platform, the Mark VIII's contemporary lines look like anything but a Lincoln. But there are still some very traditional styling cues.
Before they move on, hopefully to show the rear here, based on the Thunderbird, and if you... I want to be critical of this car because if you think about the Acuras or the Lexuses, right, the Mercedes and the BMWs and to a lesser extent the Audis that were out there, this is just large, right? It's just large and heavy, and it's based on an old platform. But I still think it's gorgeous, and it really does appeal to me. This is... You know, I'm an American and I like American cars, and this just kind of appeals to me. But it does look like a ridiculously large car. I mean, look at the size of the hood, right? And you could put a smart car on that. And I do talk about on this channel, one of the things I'm pretty critical of is cars that are thin, right? But this manages somehow to escape it. And I think it's the chrome above the headlights. This went with narrow headlights when narrow headlights weren't really the thing. And I think the grille could have been a little bit larger. I mean, this is hindsight. Make that grille a little more defined. But overall, you end up with a really gorgeous, swoopy, beautiful car. I really do think, I don't particularly like it in white. I'll be honest with you here, not the choice I would take, but really a gorgeous, well-proportioned car, but I still argue that it's oversized for the time period it was in.
The vertical chrome grille is flanked by some of the smallest profile headlights in the industry. They lean sharply towards the long flowing hood line to a steeply raked windshield. Curves continue rearward down the big C-pillars to the trunk. The classic spare tire hump has been retained, and while controversial, actually improves aerodynamics and trunk room.
Well, that's interesting to hear. I wouldn't think that would improve aerodynamics, but that's interesting they bring it up, because going back to what I just said, one of the struggles that Lincoln had is combining their history and their heritage with more modern cars and a changing world, and putting that fake spare tire hump right there, hearkening back to some of their heritage. It shouldn't work, but it does. And what it does is it beefs up the rear end just a little bit. It's surprisingly subtle. Everything about this car is surprisingly subtle, surprisingly well retained. While even here at the trunk, you've got these tail lights that, wow, they remind me ever so slightly of an Infiniti, or the Infiniti. I think it's a J30 actually looked like this. They're not too thin, they're not bulky, it just works, but that thin strip of chrome shows some reserve from Lincoln instead of slathering it everywhere. Surprisingly reserved, that's what I'm getting to. Nice looking car.
Long front and rear overhangs increase the car's prominence on the road, while subtle door moldings accent the extended shape. 16-inch alloy wheels are shod with 225 60 Series Eagle GA radials. Mark's brand new all-aluminum 4-cam 32-valve V8 engine is the first of its kind to be mass-produced by Ford. The 4.6-liter motor pumps out 280 horsepower and 285 pound-feet of torque.
That's the modular V8, if I remember correctly. That's pretty good power. Not earth-shattering, right? You're not going to burn up the pavement, but nice, good power. Good power. I'll stop there.
That's 30% more than the 5-liter Mustang engine. It's mated to an equally new, smooth-shifting 4-speed automatic transmission that drives the rear wheels. With the optional traction control disabled, the V8 hurled the 3,750-pound coupe to 60 miles per hour in only 6.6 seconds, and the quarter-mile rushed by in 14.9 seconds at 97 miles per hour.
That's really good. That's, wow, that's surprisingly good. Again, I wish I remembered what the LS is that I looked at years ago, or months ago, whenever it was. I don't remember their numbers, but that's surprisingly good. Pretty impressive.
Very quick by any standards. EPA estimates for the 1993 Lincoln Mark VIII are 18 city and 21 highway. We got an average of 19 miles per gallon. Not bad for a powerful V8. Mark VIII's redesigned electronic air suspension system controls each wheel independently for superb handling. Ford's variable power steering system gives good feedback, but was too light to the touch. Understeer was mild. Big Coupe felt confident at all times. Body roll was minimal. 11.5-inch disc brakes in the front and 10-inch disc in the rear stopped the Mark VIII from 60 miles per hour in an average distance of only 109 feet. The 4-channel anti-lock system pulled slightly, but pedal feel was good. Despite the sophisticated suspension setup, however, there was still quite a bit of nosedive.
Really, really impressive. I'm not a big fan of air suspension. I mean, you just very seldom hear air suspension not followed by broken. You know what I mean? But it looked good through the slalom. It stopped incredible. That's fantastic. 109 feet from 60. That's fantastic. Sure, it nosedive. Whatever. Great acceleration, strong engine. I mean, the gas mileage is not great. Let's face it, but really impressive numbers. And what you hear here, what I heard anyway, if you kind of read between the lines, is something I've talked about on this channel, that the American manufacturers had engineering, they had talent, they had the ability to build really, really good stuff. But as I've said about GM, they couldn't do it all right all at the same time. And here you go. You've got a great engine, fine transmission, good acceleration, good braking, anti-lock braking system, air suspension. It all comes together in this really cool car. I'm kind of impressed.
Not only are the Mark VIII's numbers impressive, but so is the sculptured cockpit-like interior. The only big improvement we'd make is a bit of wood for warmth. However, the wraparound show car dash puts all controls within easy view and reach of the driver. Driver and passenger side airbags are standard. The power front bucket seats are quite comfortable, but some of our staff would prefer more side bolstering. The driver's seat also has a 2-position memory. Gauges are white on black and staggered to match the dash's curve. The gauges are accompanied by a digital display that incorporates fuel information, a systems check, and a compass. A voice-activated cellular telephone is one of the few options available. The 8-speaker JBL stereo upgrade offers great sound, but is cluttered by more than 20 switches. Our test model was equipped with an optional trunk-mounted CD changer. The CFC-free climate control system did a fine job of keeping the cockpit at a comfortable temperature. Few buttons here make it simple to use. There is room for 3 in the...
Before they move on, I have really mixed feelings about the interior. First off, Ford could have hired an ergonomic person, honestly. The radio and the HVAC, again, hindsight being 2020, right? That's a little bit of a mess, just a lot of buttons. And they could have done better. They could have simplified it, honestly. In a lot of ways, I think what GM was doing was better at the time. But when you kind of look back at the dash, the different colors and the sculpting and that little shelf right there above the radio, that's all pretty impressive while still keeping the gauges nice and clear. Not being able to sit in one of these and then go to a Lexus LS. And I know it's a different class of car. I get that. Don't flame me for that. But not being able to sit in one and sit in the other and compare and touch and feel the plastics themselves, the quality of the materials. This is a much better looking interior overall than the Lexus. The fact that it's actually styled is super impressive. If they just cleaned up the ergonomics, I think, on those HVAC and the radio, this could have been really special. It looks a little cut up to me. It looks like a lot of pieces that could go rattle. And there's one thing about it I absolutely can't stand, and that is why is the transmission lever sunk down into that center console? It's got to be that deep into the center console. That is just asking for dust and crumbs and hair and everything else to fall down in there. That's a bad decision. I don't like that at all. I think it's pretty gross. But overall, the look of the dash looks special. And I agree with him. I would have liked maybe some wood or something to brighten it, added some warmth. But in terms of style, tell me something from Japan that looked that good. I don't think it exists.
The back seat, but we think 2 is plenty. The front passenger seat features an auto glide system that automatically moves it in and out of position for better rear seat access. And a deceptively shallow looking trunk actually holds 14.4 cubic feet of cargo. Prices.
They just moved right on from that. I was a fan of coupes back when I was younger, had 2 of them, and It was never a problem to get into the back seat, and honestly, if you're getting into the back seat of my car, I don't care if you have to suffer a little bit to get back there. Now I'm like, no, I don't want this. Why would you want this huge huge four-seat car with 2 doors? But that was easy to get in and out of. Smart thinking by Ford with the electric glide seat to slide back for you. Looked like it had plenty of room, and 14-ish, not quite 15 cubic feet. Not a huge trunk, but it's a styled rear deck back there and perfectly adequate. I mean, you could pile your luggage in there and head off. Nothing wrong with this car other than the gas mileage, of course. There is nothing here about this car that is turning me off. There's a lot to like here, and I will argue a lot of smart thinking from Ford.
The 1993 Lincoln Mark VIII started $36,640. Our test model was equipped with traction control, the cellular phone, a JBL stereo upgrade, and CD changer for a total of $38,977. A Lexus SC400 will cost you more and doesn't pack the punch of the Mark. Handling characteristics are similar, but the Lexus has a bit more luxurious interior. Yet overall, we think the Lincoln Mark VIII is a fabulous car. It combines contemporary styling with the time-honored traditions of the prestigious Mark line. But more importantly, the Mark VIII provides Lincoln with a most impressive response to the world's best.
Really impressive. I will say I don't think the looks, just from watching this, right, the quality of the interior really screams best in the world. Interesting they compared it to the SC. I think this is by far a better looking car, and I'd be interested to look up the dimensions because I get the opinion the SC is much more compact, lighter, more focused, right? This just feels big on big. And to me, that kind of defines Lincoln from the time. They had a platform, they had a chassis that they needed to use for Lincoln, and I think it was out of step with where those young, affluent buyers were going to. I don't think that anybody who was looking at that Lexus would put the Lincoln necessarily on their list, but I think this is an eminently appealing car. This looks like a comfortable cruiser, and it's fascinating they said that it handled similarly to the Lexus. And the Lexus was more expensive. I'm kind of impressed. Honestly, I'm kind of impressed. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that the Lexus would hold up better over the years and that it would be more desirable 10 years later. But this is I think truly it's a gorgeous car. It looks better in other colors. Certainly blue. I like the blue. But I think it's a gorgeous car and a really strong performer. This was much more positive than I expected it to be. I expected something that was faint praise, and it wasn't. This was just a solid performing car. I wish it had meant more for Lincoln of where they were going to, and instead of kind of getting lost in the woods for a while. But what a gorgeous car. I'm going to stop there. If you owned one of these or you have fond memories of it, please share below, because when you think about the town car and the other Lincolns, and then this comes along, and even after this, they moved into the LS and then the Zephyr and things like that. They all became more boring again. This styling, how did that come out of Ford? Let me know your thoughts below, guys. Thanks.